Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech HD. In this session, we'll discuss about how SAP licensing works with Rise with SAP. Right, so SAP has unveiled Rise with SAP offering in the year 2021. So if you are following SAP, in the last 1 or 2 years, SAP has stopped selling on-prem licenses to its customers. Right, so I mean there are a few outliers like they are still selling on-prem licenses to government companies or government organizations or some major hospitals or financial institutions, but majorly they stopped selling this on-prem licenses. Rather, they are pushing this Rise with SAP cloud offering licenses into the market. Right, so let's see how what are all the metrics available in Rise with SAP, how users are categorized. There is a new phenomenon called FUE, a full user equivalent, that has been introduced with Rise with SAP. So we will get to know about how it works on a very high level, right? So this is something, majorly talks about how any of the SAP project lifecycle works. So majorly any technical consultant or a functional consultant is involved during an implementation phase wherein the actual build, the configuration happens, the testing happens, the fit gap analysis happens, right? And then it goes for a go live. And then the final stage is on the managed services like your AMS, the application management services. But then there is one step. If you are looking from a customer point of view, customer is eligible to implement a SAP system in their organization only they have a valid SAP licenses. Right, so this is where this is what we are going to discuss about today. So majorly, this licensing discussion will be directly between the customer and SAP. In few cases, some of the partners were also involved, but even from the partner side, majorly sales or pre-sales or some SMEs would be involved. uh, you know at least in 99% of companies, no consultants would be involved during the licensing discussion, right? So this is what happens. And then once the customer has purchased a valid license, then it goes for an implementation wherein all the functional consultants, technical consultants, everyone will be involved. So I just thought of giving you a background where licensing fits into the overall project life cycle, right? Then I would like to highlight a couple of prerequisites before we get into the actual topic for the day, which is the SAP licensing in Rise with SAP. So I would like to give you a very high level overview about what is Rise with SAP offering is all about, how it works, and then one more prerequisite. So in the next slide, I'll also show you one more prerequisite which you want to be aware before getting into the before understanding about how licensing works in Rise with SAP. So about this prerequisite, Rise with SAP is something a very common buzzword in SAP fraternity in the last 2 or 3 years. So you might have seen this slide as well. So starting from the left hand side, if you see in the traditional model, from the customer point of view, they may have 5 contracts with 5 different, 5 different partners or 5 different vendors. Starting with SAP S4HANA license, which they might have bought it from SAP directly, and then infrastructure management. So they might have hosted their SAP landscape in any of the cloud or even in their on premises. So even if it is in on premises, they would have contract with any of the hardware vendor like for purchasing a server, database, storage device, backup, everything, right? So that is the second contract the customer might have. And the third contract is on the technical managed services. So for someone to, monitor their landscape, someone to take backup, to do disaster recovery, to do upgrades. So all those technical managed services, the customer might have a different contract with a different vendor. And the fourth one is on the implementation services, on the first time implementation. So someone should have implement a solution, right, on the software side. So that's a separate contract with any of the vendor. And the last one is on the application management services. So this is a very common practice, right? So this is how any of the traditional SAP implementation might have happened. But after the introduction of Rise with SAP, what it happens is the SAP S4HANA license, the infrastructure management, like like your SAP landscape might be hosted on your AWS or on your Microsoft Azure or a Google Cloud platform. That and also the technical managed services of the hosted infrastructure, like your monitoring, your backup. So all these three are coupled together, and from the customer point of view, they will have one single contract with SAP, and SAP will take care of your licensing part, your hosting part, and your technical managed services. So this is what RISE with SAP. So RISE with SAP in simple terms is a package that covers your license, that covers your hosting, and also your managed services. So only now the implementation services and the application management services are with any of the partners, like your TCS, CTS, Wipro, Infosys of the world. So only the implementation services and AMS is the from the customer side, they want to have a separate contract with those IT service companies. So this is RISE with SAP. Again, see, RISE with SAP is on top of it, there are other offerings also are available. So if you take RISE with SAP, there is something called BTP is available, Signavio is available, some tools, some you know best practices are available. But on a very high level, this is something you want to know at this point in time. I'll also plan to come up with a separate video about RISE with SAP, its offerings, everything. Okay, and the second prerequisite is to understand what are all the user types available in RISE with SAP. So there are four major user types we use in RISE with SAP. One is advanced use, second one is core use, third one is self-service use, and the fourth one is developer use. So if and all you are coming from a S4HANA background, so you might have heard about professional user, which is now equivalent to advanced use. And you might have, exposed you to functional users, which is equivalent to core use. And the productivity user is equivalent to self-service use. Okay. And let's see what are the business functions that falls under each of this category. So anyone working in finance department, procurement department, and admins, the super users will fall under advanced user category. And anyone who works in sales team and the quality team and the service team will fall under core user, the functional users category. And anyone who is working in warehouse, warehousing or production or shop floors or maintenance team, and also whoever wants to raise a purchase requisition, they need a self-service user licenses, right? And the last one is on the developer user. This is something a common, from ECC world. So ECC, S4HANA, RISE with SAP, everywhere it is called as developer user. The one who needs an access to ABAP workbench, they need a developer user license, and the ABAP users are the end users here. So this is the second prerequisite, and this is the final prerequisite for the day, right? So once you have a fair understanding of these two prerequisites, now let's get into the world of licensing in RISE with SAP. Okay, so this is an introduction to SAP licensing. So RISE with SAP operates on a subscription basis. So this is the most important word here. So in the past, in ACC or in S4HANA, SAP used to work on a perpetual license. So let me give you an example of how it works. Around 10-15 years back, we used to buy MS Office package in a CD, right? In a CD or floppy as well. But then once you bought it for whatever 3,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees, whatever it is, once you install in your computer, then it is a lifetime validity. Meaning, since till the date you are using that computer, you don't want to pay anything additional to use that particular software. This is how SAP was also operating in ECC and S4HANA world. But then even with the Microsoft Office, let's go back to the Microsoft Office example. Around 5-10 years back, Microsoft has come up with a offering called as Office 365. So it works on a subscription basis, right? So every month on month at a user level, you need to pay 100 rupees or 200 rupees, and this you need to pay till the day you are using it. So it is not a lifetime validity, rather every month on month you need to pay it out to use that services. Otherwise, that particular Microsoft Office package will not work for you. This is what the subscription basis. So this RISE with SAP is also operating on a subscription basis. So Here rather than a month on month, here it's a yearly payments. So year on year, the customer has to pay to the SAP to use those SAP offerings in Rise with SAP. Right, so with a service level agreement, so there is a service level agreement like uptime guarantee, like your SAP landscape will be uptime, meaning it will be accessible for the users for 99.99997%. So there is some SLAs. I'll try to show it out during Rise with SAP detailed video. Bundling components into a single package. So this is what we just saw it in the prerequisite one, right? So it is bundling multiple components into a single packages like your licenses, hosting, and also the technical managed services at a fixed price. So year on year, there will be a fixed price. And once the customer pays that price, SAP will be accessed for all their end users. So this is how Rise with SAP works, and this is the future. So this is how SAP is going to operate, is operating right now, and this is the future as well. So below I have just listed a few of the characteristics. So between customer and SAP, there will be a 3 or 5 years contract, right? This is the minimum. So uh, customer has to have a minimum 3 years contract with SAP to start using this Rise with SAP offering. And FUE based licensing, this is the new phenomena that has been introduced in Rise with SAP. So we will discuss in detail. I'll also have some conversion, method listed in the upcoming slide. So FUE, the full form is full user equivalent. So this is one of the most important thing we need to remember when you are working in Rise with SAP. And then quantity based compute in cloud. Since this is a cloud offering, based on the number of FUEs a customer is buying, SAP will allocate, the servers, the compute, the storage, the OS, everything will be allocated in the cloud. So again, this this varies based on the number of FUEs a customer has buying, and also customer has a choice to buy additional compute services as a separate line item as well. This also, I'll show it how it works. And then upfront yearly payments. So this is not a monthly payment, rather this is again between the customer and the SAP. It is yearly upfront payments, right? So these are all some of the characteristics of SAP licensing and Rise with SAP. Okay, now let's discuss about what are all the types of SAP licensing available in Rise with SAP. So there are majorly 4 types. I mean, there are multiple line items are there, but we can at least discuss on 95 to 97% of licenses will fall under the first 3 bucket, right? Direct access, digital access or indirect access, engine-based access, and the last one is on the other solutions. So let's discuss about what is direct access. So as the definition goes, direct access refers to a user directly logging into and interacting with an SAP S/4HANA system using their own user credentials through a user interface. So in simple terms, we can call direct access as the humans who are accessing the SAP system directly using their own credentials, right? So this is what each and every user, the human access is generally termed as full user equivalent. There is a conversion between the user types, whatever we saw in the prerequisite to the full user equivalent, that I'll show it in the next slide. But in short, what you want to remember is direct access is the human access who is accessing the SAP system directly using the credentials, right? That is with direct access. And the next one, the digital access or the indirect access, refers to how SAP charges for indirect access to the system. Like when an external system send data to SAP without a human logged in. So I'll give you an example so that it's easier for you to understand. Let's assume um, Flipkart is using a SAP, right? So Flipkart is using a SAP for their corporate system, and also Flipkart is having an e-commerce website, right? So whenever a, a user places an order in Flipkart, an automatic sales order will be generated in SAP, right? So here if you see, the Flipkart corporate SAP system is connected with their e-commerce portal, right? E-commerce application or e-commerce portal. So The sales order is getting generated automatically in SAP when a customer is placing an order in the e-commerce portal. So here, if you see, there is no human intervention is there. There is no human who is accessing the system, creating a sales order in SAP. Rather, yeah, automatic and indirect access is happening, but then a sales order is generating in SAP, right? So this is what SAP is terming it as a digital access or indirect access. I'll give just one more example, one small example. Say, for example, your SAP system is connected to a vendor portal. So whenever a vendor is sending a purchase order uh, through a vendor portal, it automatically creates a purchase order in the SAP as well. So here as well, there is no user who is accessing the system. Rather, based on the action that is happening in vendor portal, and since the vendor portal is connected to SAP, an automatic document, an automatic purchase order is generating in the SAP system. So this is what SAP is calling it as digital access or indirect access, and it is charged based on the number of documents created in the SAP system through an external system without a human intervention, right? That's the second licensing. And the third licensing is based on the engine based access. So this is what I was explaining about, based on the number of FUEs a customer is purchasing, SAP will allocate us a specific set of, compute power, like, your server, storage, number of environments. But then, if the customer feels that they need additional storage or additional server or additional environments for testing or pre-production or sandbox, then they can go for a separate line item. There is a separate line item of licensing for each and every compute resources. So those things can be purchased separately apart from the direct access license, the FUE license, right? So I mean, there is something called as they call it as a T-shirt size, right? So I don't want to get into those details. Probably, I'll take it up as a separate session. Uh, but otherwise, based on the number of FUEs, is specific compute power is being allocated by SAP in the cloud. But and then if an all customer wishes to add additional compute power, then they can go for a separate licensing, separate line item of licensing, right? That is, we call it as engine based access. And then the last one is on the other solutions, like this is something which we used to follow in S4HANA or ECC as well. So there is always a separate line item of licensing for integration suite. So in the past, we used to call it as uh, uh, what is that? CPI, Cloud Platform Integration Licensing. So that's like a middleware to connect between your SAP and non-SAP systems. But in RISE with SAP, they are calling it as integration suite. And then SAP Analytics Cloud, SAP Analytics Cloud Planning Solution, or cash management, GRC, treasury management. So each and every line item, I mean, each and every solution is out of the code, and you need to have a separate licensing for these solutions, right? And also for there will be separate licensing for your line of business solutions as well, like your success factors or Ariba, Concur, Fieldglass, OpenText. All this will attract a separate licensing as well. So these are all, this is with the type of SAP licensing RISE with SAP. Now let's get into the details of how FUE works in, I mean, what is the conversion between FUE to the user conversions, right? So as I was saying, advanced use, the business functions we saw it in the before the prerequisite 2 is finance, procurement, and admin users. So number of users per FUE is one user. Okay, so the FUE ratio is 1:1. But then if you go to the core user type of license, the business functions that falls are sales, quality, and service user. Here 5 users, 5 sales users, or 5 quality users, or 5 service users will constitute only one FUE. So a customer buys one FUE, they can either go for one finance user or they can go for 5 sales users, right? So this is how it works in RISE with SAP. And the last one is on the self-service users. So like users like warehouse, production, shop floor users. So here it gets even more interesting, wherein 30 users converts to one FUE. So again, as I was saying, if a customer buy one FUE, they can go either for one finance user or five sales user or 30 warehouse user, right? So this is the most important USP of RISE with SAP licensing. This is, you know, this is very interesting. So based on the customer requirement, they can allocate the number of users. So they can just buy 50 or 60 FUEs and probably even up to 500 users also can access using those 50 or 60 FUEs. And one more thing here is in RISE with SAP private cloud, minimum FUE a customer should buy is 60 FUEs. Okay, so this might be an interview question, or even your customer, if you want to highlight this point, you can highlight it. So 60 FUEs is the minimum licensing quantity a customer should buy. Okay, and the last one is on the developer use. So here, generally the customer might buy only one or, they generally buy only one or two licenses for ABAP consultants. So here it is very high. So only zero point 0.5 users constitute to one FUE. So even if you want to buy one license, one developer license, you need to have two FUEs. Okay. So this is the most important thing you want to understand in the whole session. And this is just a quick example. So how S4HANA license in the past. So based on the number of named users. So for each and every user, the customer has to buy a separate license in S4HANA. But after the introduction of FUE, based on the translation between the number of users to FUE ratio, the number of FUEs has been drastically reduced. So if you see here, for 187 users, when you translate it to FUEs, you need only 24 FUEs. So again, let us not get into the cost about it. So the number of users in S4HANA might be less, the FUEs cost may be high, but then let's not get into it. But this simplifies the overall licensing calculation, and also it's easier for the company to allocate between a finance user or between sales users or between warehouse or production or shop floor users. So this simplifies the overall process. So this is one of the most important slide you want to make sure you understand. This is the biggest takeaway of this session. You need to make sure you understood this conversions clearly, right? So with that, yeah, we almost come to the end of the session. Just one quiz I just thought of, putting it over here. So this, probably just go through it based on your understanding in the previous slide, come up with the answer and put it in the comments. I would like to see your comments. So how many number of FUEs are required for below user count? So you know what is the conversion of professional user to FUE, you know the conversion of core users to FUE. So just have a quick calculation. So it's a very simple calculation based on your understanding. Just put it in the comments whether is it A or B or C or D. I'd be happy to know about it. So that's it on today's session. I'll try to come up with a separate session on RISE with SAP offerings. So today we discussed more on the licensing front. I'll also have I'll try to give you an overview about what constitutes about RISE with SAP, what is the specialty that is available in RISE with SAP in the upcoming sessions. So that's it. Thank you.